Good morning and welcome to Better Thyself segment of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Making a decision is always difficult. It's like typical Hamlet's problem. To be or not to be, there's change too. To do or not to do. What shall happen if I take A decision? What are the options? What about option A, B, C, D, and so on? How shall it affect me? How shall it affect my social group? How shall it affect my family, community, nation, whatever? So, how to take a decision is one of the most difficult decisions to take. And now, before we take a decision, let's not deny that taking a decision depends on the data. Is a source, a raw material for modern capitalism, a vital ingredient for making good decisions. At least that's what we are led to believe. And so, how can it be that suppose there are two organizations, and I'll take a typical example of the COVID. Two organizations were given the exact same data, but arrived at completely different conclusions. The answer would be framing the data. And framing is a powerful cognitive tool for making decisions. And most of the decision makers forget this framing aspect. Now, as I said, look at Ebola in West Africa in 2014. When Ebola virus broke out, experts are called into study and scientists. The two main organizations, World Health Organization and Medicine Sans Frontiers, an international aid expert. Both organizations, as I said, had the same data. WHO predicted a limited outbreak, and MSF saw epidemic of a magnitude never seen before. WHO won the argument, but MSF's alarmist view came into effect. The result was what MSF said. So, how was it that these two organizations, well known, same information, same goal, same expertise, reached a diametrically opposed conclusion? And how could one of them extrapolate so widely from spotting data but point and still be right? And the answer is it is not superior technology, not better intuition, but more of the selected mental models. Now, what are the mental models? Mental models or frames are representation of reality that makes a word comprehensible. They allow us to see patterns, make sense out of nonsense. Circumstances that we encounter are placed in a proper order. And we always make mental models, but we ignore them. And it's not we can choose one frame is better than the other. No. In the end, most crucial step in the decision making is how you size up the situation and how you frame it. When Bangladesh war was to be fought, the mental models were prepared, and we saw that we have to be prepared against US intervention because Nixon had a pathological hit from India. So we cited Joint Defense Treaty. And even then, General Manik Shah was told that he had mentally prepared to fight the last ditch battle in the war, forest of Sundarbans. So leaders who consistently make good decisions are aware of framing, are aware of the mental model they use, but the people who fail to see the situation through the right lens put their organization in great peril. This is what happened with the German automakers such as Daimler, BMW, Volkswagen. They held on to the mental model of a gas powered motor. And by the time they realized the mistake, Tesla had gone way ahead in its electric cars. You can't keep on waiting. And what happens is that the mental models let you imagine things, especially where very scarce data is available. They help us fill in the blanks, extrapolate beyond the reality that is seen to the others. They give you an ability to run counter factuals that imagine what could have been, what has been, and what could be. This what could have been is the most important thing, and that's why I always say that the people who lack counterfactual thinking, great entrepreneurs are leveraging this counterfactual thinking. I had a discussion with Ratan at one time, Ratan Tata, and he told me that before making a decision and the data, which doesn't even exist, I go by the only thing, if this is not there, what would be the result? And they say they put that in the counterfactual position. If it's there, that's the profit going to be. But if it's not there, would there still be profit of the equivalent nature? No. So counterfactuals are very effective because they are not flights of fancy. There is not boundless creativity. They are careful simulations that take place within the mental model. Now, again, I'm talking of the mental. I'm not talking of the blackboard. It's not the bean counters. It's not the counters who can do the job. It is thinkers and great entrepreneurs, great political leaders, great men. All are always thinking of the possibilities and the probabilities. A thing may be possible and probable. It may be possible but not probable. It may be probable but not possible. That Aristotelian concept of possible and probable is a major part of the counterfactual thinking. So you have to become a better framer in the. You have to discipline your mind. It's a cognitive muscle that can be trained, and you're going to train that muscle. And the first step is to become aware of the mental model you use. Until you know the background, like MSF did, they looked at the geographical spread and ignored the past. WHO did not do that. So these are the things that have to be taken, and adequate models produce actionable counterfactuals. If you have a good model in your mind, it will give you a proper perspective, a proper look into the counterfactuals, and then you can evaluate all that. So the third step is to enlarge your repertoire of mental models. If you have only one set of mind, if you cannot think the possibilities, the options, then you cannot take a good decision. And it's done in the twinkling of seconds. People who keep on thinking, never come to a good decision. People who can assume or you can make their minds work like a supercomputer, taking care of all the models are good decision makers. So one strategy for increasing this is a form of cognitive foraging. Be like a squirrel, keep on storing facts, a pursuit of the new ways of thinking. This in particular entails building connection with a diverse group of people. Go beyond your community, beyond your people. I mean, see, I as a CEO even talk to the peons and the janitors, and they could give me better insight. There was a problem of security in one of my factories. So I talked to the janitor and he gave me some ideas, which were found to be great. So leverage the diversity of other mental models in terms of teams and organizations. And then the problem of the team is most of the teams are only one man show. Let's be very clear. So don't try to be provocative. Don't try to be passive. Now, there are 5 ways to make tough calls. First is stay on the message. This can presupposes that you have considered the possible course of action prior to making a call, and then have belief in yourself. Don't forget, life is full of conflicting signals. And if you can receive those signals, interpret them, and then implement the option available. Then, third most important thing is don't wait. People who dawdle, who are always thinking to do or not to do, what to do, which options available, mind you, nothing is ever certain. Remember, whichever option you take, the probability is you might fail. So you have got to come to the old concept of Aristotle, possible and probable. If it's both possible and probable, that's ideal. But in case it's possible and not probable, no. But if it's probable and not possible, then you can create a possibility. Third, fourth is you owe it to them, the others. Is your decision going to be impactful negatively? And then the worst thing is people who take decisions in tough times do not look for validation. Well, I remember Manmohan Singh giving a talk, and at the end of the talk, he asked his PA, was it okay? He's asking for a validation. No. Good decision makers take a decision, stick to it. And mind you, buck stops with you. If I have to frame it, taking a tough call depends on your experience. Then your moral gyroscope, the ethical values, the moral values, the societal values. Then is your judgment. And then is your courage, your fortitude. Experience will be the raw material. Moral gyroscope are the parameters. Judgment is the mental framework. And fortitude, the ability to say, yes, I did it, I'm responsible. If you can say, I'm responsible, you can be sure more than half of the job is done. And don't forget, global economic turmoil has got numerous lessons. The most important one, when you take a good decision, little else matters. It's immaterial people hate you. It's immaterial people don't like you. It's immaterial that you lose in the short term. But when you refuse to take a decision, show a pattern of making indecisive actions, then you're short sighted. Then you are incompetent. Then you are dawdling. You're average. Don't fall into the trap of thinking of organizations of philosophical instead of pragmatic terms. Maybe when high level leaders started shying away from tough calls, briefly to think of their organization in abstract, ethereal terms like, these jargons are harmful. Diversity, culture, we that is stumbling block. Be like an armed car or armed personal carrier, smash. So be like a tank. Just go on where there's a desert or an arid land. So you have to create the climate wherever you take a decision, and the serious daunting decision requires strong framework. Now, I'm going to tell you 10 steps that define what I have seen makes you able to take tough calls. These 10 steps. First, I've given you 5, and they were based on making tough calls. They are the background. And now, the steps. A, kill your sacred cows. You have to abandon conventional mindset. Challenge your own assumptions. Kill the sacred cow. And that will help you survive and thrive in the volatile conditions. If they are normal, then you don't need tough decision. A tough decision is required only when it's really going tough. At that time, the sacred cows have no value. This should not be done. We have been doing always like this. No. The successful decision makers live in harmony with complexity, with speed, with instability and ambiguity. You have to go beyond the competition. So the economic clarion call for the leaders is to create a re-secularization approach, distinguish your decision making from others, both now and in future. And it means removing the sacred status from an idea and questioning even whether the idea still has some value. Quite possible they may don't think it's not in the culture of the country. It's not politically correct. All those impediments, sacred cause, our religion doesn't permit it, our traditions don't permit it. They are not to be bothered about. When again referring to 71 war, we had to fight Bangladesh. We didn't fight as object to signing the defense agreement with Russia, though it was against the concept of non-alignment. Our culture is of non-alignment. No, your culture is of your success, period. So that's the first thing, kill your sacred cause. Second, define an ideal outcome and establish criteria for your decision. Be clear whether you are what you are trying to accomplish. Focus on outcomes, not inputs or methods. Means whatever, unless they're unethical. As I said earlier, your moral gyroscope is very important. But otherwise, bypassing them, overcoming them is important. In other words, ask yourself about what you are trying to achieve before deciding how you want to achieve. And you will do it by setting the criteria. When you set a criteria, an ideal solution automatically comes in the framework. The mental framework, your mind is always active. So you might decide we don't want to increase, say, revenue unless we increase our margins. Or you want to say we want to limit growth to the existing facilities. Well, it's for you to take up the option. And this sort of clarity will keep you from starting with an input and methodology. The input might be cutting cost. The methodology is eliminating jobs. Now, eliminating jobs, according to the convention, would be bad thing because you're killing a sacred cow. But if need is there, I wouldn't mind. And I always say a good manager, a good decision maker is a good butcher. You cannot make a decision without being a good butcher. Then weigh options, brainstorm, analyze each position, but not with others, with yourself. I'm saying this sort of a team building and seeking positions and brainstorming, they're bullshit. They're wastage of time. You are the person with the buck stops. You have to take a decision. And that way, I admire Abraham Lincoln. When the Civil War was to take place, his seven cabinet secretaries, home, defense, everybody said, no, we should not have a war. And at the end of the meeting, he said, seven nays, one eye. Eyes have it. So he said, no, we are going there. I know people will be killed. I know country will be devastated, but it's necessary. So this becomes easier when you have set clear criteria and the outcome. Then, fourth, reject easy fixes and don't do well what you shouldn't do in the first place. Most important is status quo. This is a worst sacred cow, status quo. This is what we have been doing. We have always done like this. It has worked in this way. So we'll continue working. It's a comfort zone. People Reject all those easy fixes. If need is, write rough shot on all the opposition that your mind creates. Mind you, it's again you. The buck is stopping with you. So those decisions don't really qualify as tough decisions when you are compromising. Then one thing I loved about William Ockham, I was reading him. He was a 14th century English friar, like a Ockham. And he came with a concept. He said, shave away what is unnecessary. So embrace Occam's razor. This principle suggests economy, clarity, conciseness, and problem solving. It states that the fewer assumptions should be selected and the lesser assumptions are the better it is. I've seen the project report, the risk taking and the assumptions. And whenever the report would come to me when I was CEO of the consultancy, if the assumption are more than three, I'll throw the waste in the waste paper basket. Assumptions have got to be minimum. Risk factors have got to be minimized because they are the stumbling blocks. So Occam's ideas face mockery in most of the organizations. We have let ourselves become mired in irrelevant and interesting details. But I don't want to be interesting. I'm not a movie hero when I take a decision. I'm a strategist. And as a strategist, I'll cut off whatever is unnecessary. I might even, if I was a Mughal emperor, might say off with his head. And they were good decision makers. Don't forget it. The emperors were good decision makers. Quick, tough. They could take decisions because they were able to have a moral gyroscope. So keep things simple. Then don't waste time trying to get consensus. People who want to please nobody. A commitment to inclusive decision making does not mean equal obligation that all decisions should be unanimous. I told you about the story of Abraham Lincoln. People said no, and he said yes, and he had it. Usually, consensus takes too long and causes loss of time and resources. So, focus on clear lines of accountability and take a decision. And most important, you might have seen that I put on the Facebook when the people give me advice, I say unsolicited advice is garbage and goes in garbage. So, whenever unsolicited advice is treated with a contempt, even if it's good, don't bother. Seek input. No, there's a difference between unsolicited advice and seeking input. Input is what you think somebody is capable enough, seek his ideas. But if somebody comes by itself, like if you're follow sick in India, what happens is half a dozen people come and each starts prescribing. Don't listen to them. But go to a doctor, seek his input. Seeking advice takes a certain degree of courage. Rejecting unsolicited feedback takes even more courage. So people with strong commitment to self-improvement and those who want to take tough decisions, tough calls, they can be misguided by unsolicited advice. So reject it. Then anticipate the consequences. Don't forget, as I said earlier, every decision is going to have a consequence. So anticipate what are the consequences, what will the people say, what will the opposition say, what points can come up. So you should have an ability to look into the future and keep on consistently balancing risks and reward. But that doesn't mean don't get that you should catastrophize events. No, but you should foresee what others can't foresee. Then seek success, not perfection. If you want to take a decision, don't seek for perfection. Perfectionists can never take a tough decision. They steadfastly pursue every enough information, weigh pros and cons, seek more advice, want to rectify all the defects. No. But your result should be success, irrespective of some imperfection. And then make the call, take the decision, and refuse to second guess it. Guilt and his companion worry are the two most useless human emotions. Guilt attempts to change the past. Worry serves as a futile effort to control the future. So forget about guilt, forget about worry, forget about other things. Take a decision and stick to it. We have to stop venerating the sacred cows, traditions, conventional approaches. And we respect them because they make us feel insecure. Making a tough decision means don't bother about security, bother about the outcome. When you replace an emotional response with a new attitude, your counterfactual thinking, cognitive skills, challenge yourself to take risk, reframe, live well, think out of the box, and success would be yours. Making tough decision calls involves killing some sacred cause, but it also paints a credible picture of the possibility. You'll have more possibilities. So come on, employ these ways and take a tough decision. That will make you stand out. And Shakespeare said about such people, the elements so mixed in him that nature might stand up and say, he is a man with capital M. Thank you.